Some people say, yeah, an apple a day keeps the doctor away. I say 2 CXOs a day makes me happy. And so professionally, and so that's what I mean, live in the trenches. And that's my rule, right? Every day, 2 CXOs. So.
And, I think that it's a good segue to a question that we've asked a lot of the other folks that we've had come on. And really that's about understanding product market fit and what it really means to be customer centric. I want to balance this question a little bit because obviously what you just talked about is a very prime example of how you be customer centric as a CEO. But I think you also said that empathy is one of the most important traits that you look for in the people that you hire, and finding folks that have that ability. And I guess first question I have is around hiring people and finding the right sorts of people. Because, as early stage investors and investors in general, I mean, there's not a single founder that we talk to that says they're not customer centric. But I think really finding people that are customer centric is important, and empathy is a core part of that. So curious, how do you kind of test for that? What do you look for in people as you try to find people that are the right fit for Netskope?
Yeah, I mean, look, I would never tell anyone that they need to build their company a certain way or have a certain culture or pick a certain set of investors. I think it's very personal, and there's sometimes there's no right way. But the way that I like to do it is I have this test. Like I got to put my head on the pillow at night, look myself in the mirror, and I got to feel good. I got to feel like I did it the right way, right? And doing the right way, in my view, means I do it in a way which is with high integrity, with being open and collaborative, being very innovative, right? And obviously making sure that our team and the people we hire are like that, and they lead that way. And part of that is having empathy for people, understanding their situation, actually perhaps caring for them, actually in the sense of understanding that everyone's a little unique, and so how do you take that into account? And those people who have that EQ along with the IQ, they're the hardest to find. It's hard to find people who have both, right? And so in many cases, you have to pick, like, just like you pick, do I want the 10 out of 10 on domain, but I want the, 7 on culture? I go the other way, right? I'd rather have, in many cases, the cultural fit. And so that's a very personal thing. And it can become a big differentiator. Your culture can become a reason people want to work here. It can become a reason customers want to work with you. Anyway, so that's how I think about that, and kind of making sure that it's just part of the fabric of your company. And I think it's very important. I give you this one example. So I remember one day I was asked to come in to speak to an investor early on. It's about 10 years ago. And at that time I said, hey, sure, I'd love to meet you and so on. And I went in to their office. The nice receptionist put me in the room, and the person walked in to the room and said to the receptionist, hey, go get me some water. I'm done. That person is a very well-known VC in the Valley. I'm done. Never working with them, ever. And he turns to me and goes, so why are you here? After the person asked me to come for so long. And that's what I mean. Like, you got to pick people that you want to work with, and, that you can look yourself in the mirror and go, you know what, I want those people to be part of my team and partners. And you can self-select, and you got to have the guts as an entrepreneur to not listen, perhaps not to your heart, and just, do what you know is right. And that's not always what people would tell you, because others would say, you got to go, partner with that person, right? They're I won't say it on the podcast, the word I was going to say, but, but no, you don't have to. So anyways.
I think that's actually really, it's a good anecdote, and I think it's really important. And I mean, the journey is definitely long, and it's never a straight line up. So yeah. You want to have people that are there with you in the trenches that you can disagree with and still go back and have a beer with. So I totally appreciate that.
Yeah.
The flip side of that, though, is from a hiring perspective, because I think, look, when you're making an investor decision, it's a little bit different because it's a little bit more of like a market decision. You talk to a bunch of folks, and so maybe a little bit different. But when you're hiring, obviously every investor and any other CEO, coach, or advisor will always tell you go hire A players.
Yeah.
But the A player thing may clash with who's the right fit for the company, and of course we can argue over what the right definition of A player is.
Yes.
But I'm curious, like, how do you kind of fight that urge, and really like more of a what advice would you give to other founders that you were advising as to how to fight that urge and make sure that they find the right people and that are a fit for their company?
Yeah. It is a great question. And first of all, it doesn't hurt to have made a mistake because then you'll remember it for the rest of your life. So I know that's not the answer you're supposed to give, the textbook answer, but the reality is that, look, when you go throughout your career, I'm going to guess most every entrepreneur or person has had the experience where, for whatever reason, they perhaps hired that, quote, the name, right? Or the A player, as someone else termed them, A. Um, and then they realized, like, darn, I should have just done what I thought, or I should have assessed that better, or I should have. And so what I tell folks is like, look, you obviously have your gut and your heart, but you have others around you trust who can evaluate. You have background checks you do. You talk to people who work with this person, and you do all of that, and you get that data and primary data, and you should have a view of if they're going to be a fit. And don't get pressured into hiring that person, because in the culture that you want, which is what you filter on, that's what's going to matter. And the second thing is never go for the name. So many times people have tried to pressure me to say, go for this person, look at their name, look at what they do. And the reality is that in some cases they're the right people, but in others it's like, oh no, like I want to hire for substance, right? And so I want to hire a cultural fit, not for the name. And I think you got to have the guts to do that. In many cases, that means not listening to your investors and your board. You're there for a reason, right? But the reality is the good investors and the good board members, they know that, right? And they've been around, they have good cultural fabric. And so you won't run into it as much with those people. And so